As a restaurant owner or operator, you're pretty familiar with the marketing tactics: texting, emailing, Instagram, Facebook ads, local newspapers, tasting events. But where a lot of those challenges with marketing come is in the strategy. And in this new world for restaurants, what are the strategies that you need to succeed and get people in the door and back again? On this episode of the Restaurant Growth Podcast, I had the pleasure of speaking to Chip Klose about just that. Chip is the founder of Restaurant Strategy, a consulting business, and the host of a podcast of the same name. He has decades of experience in all facets of the restaurant industry, and today we dove right into the strategies that work to attract customers, retain them, and turn them into evangelists for your business. We also got into a little bit of hiring chat and a lot of strategy for you that you can take away today and use to get people in the door. Without further ado, here's the conversation. Chip, how are you today?
Hey, what's going on?
Not much. Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So Chip Klose is the founder of Restaurant Strategy and also the host of the Restaurant Strategy podcast. But, there's a lot more to it. So Chip, why don't you introduce yourself, tell the audience what you're all about.
No, I appreciate you having me on. I appreciate you giving me the room to kind of talk about everything I do. So I've been here in New York City for the last 20 years. I'm a restaurant coach. I started in restaurants like I think many of the listeners probably. I started off at the bottom. I was a host and then a back waiter and then a server. And then I was a server in a better restaurant and then became a captain and then a maitre d'. And eventually I worked up into management. I spent many, many years opening restaurants. That was my little niche I found for myself. Did that, kind of amassed a huge amount of operational experience. Then started learning a lot about marketing. And the more I learned about marketing, the more fascinated I was by it. I ended up going back to school. I got my MBA in food marketing from St. Joe's University, the only program like it in the world. Learned a ton. And when I took all those concepts and kind of brought them back to the industry that I know and love so much, I realized that restaurants either don't do marketing very well or don't really do it at all. And so my path the last several years has been working as a consultant and a coach, helping chefs and operators build more profitable restaurants. That's what we talk about on the podcast, on the Restaurant Strategy podcast. And that's what I do in my coaching. I'm after that goal. I love this industry and I think we can be better. And I think it's about kind of shifting our mindset, shifting the way that we look at the industry and that we approach our work.
Yeah. So, I mean, in the interest in kind of going off of making things better, doing better, I think it's fair to assume most of our listeners and most of the people that kind of use Seven Shifts and come across us are doing some form of marketing. They're doing text-based marketing. They're doing emails. They're probably doing Facebook and Instagram ads. They're pretty tech savvy. So, with that in mind, kind of thinking about that, what can restaurants be doing from a more strategic standpoint? Because I think they have a decent hold on what the tactics are. But this kind of crazy past couple of years, from what you've been seeing and going into 2022, where are those kind of strategies you think that could be capitalized on better?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. And, I said this a second ago, right? I feel like restaurants aren't particularly good at it. Either they don't do marketing very well or they don't do it at all. That I find that a lot of the way that that restaurant owners or operators go about marketing is they do a lot of stuff, right? They do stuff because they see the restaurant down the street doing it. They do stuff because a vendor approaches them, a partner, a consultant, a friend. It might all be well-meaning, but they do stuff. And so a lot of what I do as a restaurant coach, as a business coach, is I get people to think more strategically. And you named it so well. Everything you do should be tied to a problem and a goal, right? You shouldn't do anything that isn't trying to solve a problem. You look at a problem and say, all right, we don't make enough revenue on Monday nights. Okay, so what would make that a profitable night, right? So we make $2,000 a night. We need to make $3,000. Okay. Then if you make it specific, right? Yeah. And this is what I think a lot of restaurant owners don't do. They're doing a lot of stuff without building a strategy, without coming up with what are the problems, what's the goal that's going to solve that problem, and then specifically putting a system in place for achieving all of those things. And I love restaurant owners so much. I love this industry so much. This is what I do. I spend every day, many hours each day talking to restaurant owners. And the best part about my job is getting them, I talked about this in the beginning, right? It's about mindset shifts, getting them to shift their approach. If you tether everything to problems and goals, well, then it doesn't matter if a vendor comes to you with a great new solution. It doesn't matter if the restaurant down the street starts doing something else, or if your Uncle Joe starts telling you, oh, you really should be doing fill in the blank. You should be on Instagram. You should be on TikTok. You really should be have your own app. You really should. I mean, there are all these things, right? You should be doing, should be doing, should be doing.
Right.
I find that a lot of restaurant owners are talked down to, which really bothers me. Because they know their industry, they know their market, they know their food, they know their restaurant, they know their people better than anyone else. For me, it's just about harnessing that and giving a framework so that they can come at that more efficiently, more effectively.
So kind of coming from that, right? We have the tactics in place, but that framework, if you could dive a little bit more into that, how does that kind of start and how is it formatted? And what's the framework do you use the same framework for all of your clients?
I have built a series of frameworks because they're simple to understand, and not that they're easy to execute or implement, but they're simple to understand. And this is marketing, right?
Yeah.
So much of marketing, right? They say, oh, I ask an operator, so what are you doing for marketing? So we don't have a marketing department. We're just a little restaurant. Everybody has to do marketing, right? Marketing is figuring out what's your product, who is it for, and then how can you reach them, right? Who wants what we have, or who needs something that I'm uniquely qualified to provide? So when I build a framework, when I talk to operators, you absolutely need to do marketing. And so I try to give them an easier way to think about it. Something that I developed over the last several years is it's called the triangle principle, right? This idea that there are three separate portions of marketing any product, any service, any experience, but it translates particularly well to the restaurant industry. So the triangle principle is three pieces: attraction, retention, and evangelism, right? So attraction, meaning that you need to find a way to acquire new guests, right? To acquire new business. Retention, you need a way to retain those guests, to bring them back, to help them become regulars. And then finally, evangelism, which is my favorite part of it, is that you need a way to help those people spread the word far and wide. You want to create a bunch of evangelists who can't help but go spread the gospel of your restaurant when they leave. There's a book by a guy named Mark Schaefer called Marketing Rebellion. And in that book, he says, the sad fact is that 80% of our marketing is actually happening behind our backs. It's happening without us. Yep. So are you giving your diners the shorthand so that they can go and explain what it is you do? They can go spread the word and help you attract new customers so that you can retain them, so that you can turn them into super fans, so that, it's like the flywheel, right? It just keeps it keeps going over and over and over again. That's the basic framework of it, that there are three separate areas, and a whole set of actions for one that won't apply to the other. It's super important that operators separate those and really think of them as three distinct areas.
So as three distinct areas, we have attraction, retention, and then evangelism, right? And they all kind of inform each other, like you mentioned, the flywheel. You attract people, you get them back in the door, and then you get them to get other people to come.
It sounds so simple, right?
Cycles. Right. Yeah. It sounds simple, but I think we know, and restaurant owners know, it's not that simple. So going into attraction, I guess just starting from the beginning, there's a number of tactics to get people in your restaurant doors, analog ways, digital ways. But I guess from a strategic standpoint, what are things that you're recommending or finding, or rather, what are ways that your clients are having success strategically getting people in the door?
Yeah. And so here's the first mindset shift in regards to this framework. Everybody wants to go in order. Attraction, we bring people in. Retention, we get them to come back. Evangelism, we get them to spread the word. It doesn't work that way. You have to work it backwards. So I'm going to answer your question, but I'm not going to answer it yet. We're going to come to it.
Okay.
Right? I want to work backwards, because really what you need to do is start with evangelism. You already have, and I'll tell you why, right? You already have people coming in. I hear this all the time from operators. I say, what do you need? What are your struggles? I just need more butts and seats. I just need more butts and seats, right? If more people knew about us, they would come in. And I say, that's absolutely not true. Because on your way from home to work, you pass 24 restaurants that you know about that you've never been in. You've never been in for one reason or another. It's not because of lack of awareness. You are aware of them. You drive past them. You think of all the places you walk past, from the, the subway to your restaurant, from you know them. You've just never been in them for one reason or another. So it's not awareness. Awareness is one piece of it. But again, we're going to come back to that attraction piece. So attraction, retention, evangelism, but you got to work them in reverse order. I want to start with evangelism because, like I said, you already have people coming in your door. Are you creating a menu? Are you creating an experience that's getting them so excited that they can't help but talk about it, right? So when we talk about strategies versus tactics, right? You could give making food Instagrammable, quote unquote, right? That's a tactic, and right now I think we all realize that that's a sign of the moment that we're in right now. Right. But the idea is the same. The idea is correct, right? I can't tell you what to do to make it so that people will take pictures of something. I just know that when people are overwhelmed, they find something that's so remarkable, they can't help but take a picture of it. They can't help but talk about it, tell their friends about it the next day, their colleagues when they're at work. So there's no one way to do this. Operators just have to stop and look at this, right? The worst thing that a restaurant can have is just that they're just another, right? We don't need just another anything, just another Irish pub. Yeah. Right? I already got a great Irish pub. I go there all the time. All my friends meet there. Like, I've been going there for years. They know me. It's comfortable. It's totally serviceable. I don't need another one. You got to give me a reason why I'm going to switch from the one I know and love and have been going to, the one I've been loyal to for years. So you've got to give people a reason to talk about you, a reason to take a picture of you. You can answer that question a million different ways, right? David Rockwell designs all these fabulous restaurant spaces all over the world where you can't help but walk in and go, oh my God, that's so beautiful. I got to take a picture of that. Yeah. So that's one way of evangelism, right? There are other, there's service flourishes. There are food, sometimes the food is just so interesting, you can't help but talk about it. Yeah. Sometimes there's a service flourish that's so crazy and wild and interesting and whatever. That's the duck press at the grill here in New York City. That's the little salmon tartare cones at French Laundry. Yeah. That's the dessert on the table at Alinea. That's the black tap milkshake, right? The side of cheese, the slice of cheesecake on top of the milkshake. Yeah. All of those are things that people have never seen before. They go, oh my God, people aren't going to believe this, right? There's a million different ways to do this, but how do you make it so people can't help but talk about you? Wrapped up in this are these ideas of expectations, right? Hospitality, and Danny Meyer talked about this, 15, 20 years ago when he wrote his book. But hospitality is about exceeding the guest's expectations. So when we talk about evangelism, we have to understand what the guest expects when they come in here. And then we've got to work hard to try to exceed those expectations. So how do we make it so that I didn't imagine that this was going to happen, that this was going to taste like this, that I was going to feel this way. If we can do that, right, and go above and beyond, that's how that starts. So that's where evangelism starts, because you already have people coming in your restaurant. Like I said, operators always approach me and say, I just need more butts and seats. I just need more butts and seats. I said, no, you need more butts. You don't necessarily need more new butts, right? No. So one of the key ways is to, number one, help the people who are in there spread the word for you. Like Mark Schaefer says, in Marketing Rebellion, that, 80% of the marketing happens behind your back. This is part of that. This is that evangelism. And we know this. This is nothing new. Let me remind you what this is called. This is called word of mouth. Right. Word of mouth has been happening for 2,000 years. We just have new tools to be able to do it, right? We've made it easier than ever before. I don't have to pick up a phone and dial. I don't have to wait 2 weeks until I see somebody. I can post a picture. They'll see it within an hour. I can text somebody a picture. It's never been easier than it is. It's just word of mouth. But you're trying to convert people so that they become evangelists for your brand. That's where it starts.
And do you think the best way to kind of figure out what it is that may make people evangelize your restaurant, to find the people that may already are, or the people that you see often, the butts that you see very often in the seats, and just kind of ask them what keeps you coming back Is that a tactic or strategy rather that you think more restaurants should do?
It's a For me, and I understand what your question is, and I'm gonna come back to it in a little circuitous route.
Yeah.
For me, it is about understanding who you are as a restaurant.
Mm.
What do you do? What do you do differently than any other place out there? Right? How is what you do remarkable? Seth Godin talks all about this. The Purple Cow is a book he wrote years and years and years ago. This idea of being remarkable, that's what stands out. And in the noisy marketplace, which we are a part of, the marketplace has never been noisier. Certainly in restaurants, right? Restaurants have never, at least in this country, in America, they're at an all-time high. Food culture is huge, right? That makes things noisy.
Yeah.
So you got to really know. I always say this, who you are and who you're for. If you know who you are and who you're for, then you communicate your value and you speak directly to the people who are most apt to love what it is you're doing.
Mm.
Then it's a match made in heaven, and they can't help but talk about it. Now, what you're talking about is relationship, right? And when we talk about restaurant industry, right? When somebody dines with us, it takes an hour, 2 hours, maybe 3 or more hours, right? That entire thing is a transaction. That entire time, we as the merchant are selling to the consumer. The beauty of it in the restaurant industry is we're both merchants and consumers, right? Because we have been to restaurants ourselves. It's not like we haven't been on that side of it, but we are willingly, knowingly being sold to the entire time. Would you like another glass of wine? Would you like dessert? Would you like a side with that? Would you like a scotch with dessert? We're being sold to the entire time, and we're excited about it because I do want another drink. Yes, I do want some dessert now. Yes, I would like a side dish to go to my thing, right? So where this starts is about building relationship, about really understanding who you are, again, who you are and who you're for, building that relationship so that it feels like a really great relationship. I'm so glad we found each other. Now it's like, I'm so glad we found each other. Do you know any other people like you that would also love this relationship? That's evangelism. And really, now it starts getting into the retention piece of it as well, right?
Yeah.
100 people walk into your restaurant. Not all of them are going to love it, are going to gush over it, right? Hopefully everybody has a great time. Are they going to have a great time enough to evangelize for you? Not necessarily. What you have to do is identify the people that are most apt to love it, that you are all about. You're going to get them to evangelize for you, and then you're going to make sure to connect with them so you can say, you're my people. I am delivering something you need. You love me because I am answering your problem. I'm solving your problem. Hey, I solved your problem this one time. How about you come back and let me keep solving this problem? This no longer has to be a problem. This is something as simple as a restaurant who hosts client dinners, right?
Right.
If somebody hosts client dinners once, twice, 3 times a week, and they find something that's really good, it's the right style dining room, not too noisy, the service is effortless, all of that. And they're like, great, this is a great place to entertain clients. Well, I, as the restaurant owner, have solved this person's problem. Yeah. I've created a solution to this guy's problem. I've created a restaurant that works so well for them. So yeah, we want to get to know them, and we want to make sure that we keep putting ourselves back in front of them, right? And it's something as simple as inviting them back. So when we talk about the strategy, right, there are things that we do to get people to talk about us. There are specific actions, specific things we do. Now, this is the point I was getting to, right? Under evangelism, there are specific targeted things we do. Under retention, there are specific targeted things we do to get people to come back. So let's talk about what those are, because if that's the strategy, then what are some of the tactics, right? Hands down, number one, email.
Okay.
An engaged email list is a restaurant owner's most valuable asset. The data is overwhelming at this point. If you don't already have an email marketing strategy, now is the day to get one. Mm-hmm. It is so cheap to get started. It is so easy. And overwhelmingly, when we talk about ROI, restaurant owners, what's the return? What's the return on it? What's the ROI? The return on investment is overwhelming. The data says it's like for every dollar spent on email marketing, you'll see $42 in return. I mean, it's like literally. I mean, the data is so crystal clear. So if you're not doing it, you've got to be doing it, right? If you're doing it, it's about building a regular cadence. It's about building a value-based relationship. So again, here's that relationship word, right? How do we provide value? I always tell this to restaurant operators, like, we want them on our list so that we can sell to them from time to time.
Right.
But the challenge is putting ourselves, turning the tables a little bit. Why would they want to be on our list? Do they want to be sold to? Maybe a little bit, right? Yeah, they want to know when the New Year's reservations open up, or when Thanksgiving reservations open up. Okay, they want to be sold to a little bit.
Right.
But every restaurant has to answer that other question for themselves. Why would people want to be on this list? Maybe it's, it's about providing value, right? So maybe it's about providing entertainment or humor or information, or, there are all different ways to do it. But when we talk about retention, number one way you can do it is through email marketing. Combined with that is this idea of automation. There's some incredible tools out there that are coming, but this idea of segmenting the list so you can speak to people where they are. If somebody's a regular customer who comes back frequently, you want to be able to speak to them one way versus another person who hasn't been here in a year. If somebody's a steak lover and the other person's a vegetarian, we want to be able to say different things to them. And there are all kinds of tools out there. This is where the industry is going. This next year, 2022, is going to be huge, huge for automation. Being able to segment and specifically target different segments of the list. Some with automations, some with targeted campaign emails. That's the biggest thing you can do. The other thing that I always think about with retention is analog, right? So we always talk about all these digital solutions.
Yeah, everyone wants to talk digital and new tools and all that, but there's still a good, I think, nice chunk of the world that still responds really well to traditional. Now we're calling it analog, but things that exist in the real world.
It does. And something as simple as I've used this to great effect over the last several years are bounce back cards in some way or another. This is not a new idea. This is 70 years old, maybe longer. The idea being that somebody comes in and at the end of the meal, you're giving them a postcard, a business card, a handwritten whatever that literally entices them to come back. So we used to do this for restaurants I work at during the holiday season, because January and February, those first 6 weeks of the new year, are always typically pretty slow. And so we would do bounce back offers, enticing them to come back in January and say, hey, here you go. You get 2 glasses of champagne on your any visit in January. Here's $20 off any meal in January. You're like, oh, great. I get a martini for free. I get 2 drinks. It's just anything to entice them back in. You deliver that. And now you can get postcards made for a fraction of a penny. Right. And if you got a couple thousand of them run off and you gave them away during fourth quarter, right, during December, even your busiest time of the year, and you just said, hey, I hope you enjoyed yourself. We'd love to see you back. Here's our postcard. Here's an offer for you to come back. This is the other thing, right? Open up your reservation book so that on December 10th, you can book a reservation for January 22nd.
Okay.
And get them right in there. Here's the other piece. I always tell restaurant owners, I said, for an entire night, I challenge you to not do this, because we all do it in the restaurants where we go, somebody's getting up from the table and we help them, right? We pull out the table, we help them up and say, thank you very much, folks. Have a good night. And that's it. And we just hope that they'll think of us again. We hope they'll come back. And so I always tell restaurant owners, I said, I challenge you, right? This Saturday night, spend the entire night and you never say that once. Instead, you got to figure out something else to say. What you really want to say is, thank you very much. When are we going to see you again?
Right.
Thank you so much. When are you coming back? Thank you very much. When can I book you your next reservation? If you started doing that, if you just shift, again, a mindset shift, if you just make that little shift, right? When are you coming back is implied in the other one. I hope you come back. I hope we can see you again, because my business relies on you coming back. If we just shifted and actually asked people, because it's just a nice thing to do. We do it to all our friends, right? This is really great. We should do this again sometime. We do that all the time with our friends. Why would we not do it for our business? And so I challenge everybody listening here. Again, we talk about, what are the solutions here? What are the tactics? I promise you, if you keep track of this, if you do this 30 times a night, you will get at least 5 takers on it and say, oh, you know what? My aunt's coming into town next Saturday. This would be a great place for brunch. Or, you know what? My parents are coming into town. Or, you know what? Next month, I'm celebrating I've got clients coming in. You do this 30 times a night, you will get at least 5 takers. And if you do this 7 nights a week, that's 35 additional reservations on the book. You will see a profound difference in your business. And so here's this, again, this flywheel, right? Attraction, retention, evangelism. And I worked it backwards. And you see how this works backwards, because now we've spent no effort trying to get new customers in the door. All we're doing is trying to manage our current business levels, make sure we're wowing our guests so that they can't help but talk about us, making sure that we're wowing our guests and actually inviting them back in one way or another. And you can do this. Again, I use the example of email, table touches, and bounce back offers. But if you've got a SMS, if you've got text messaging, and that's right for your brand, then just slot that in, or do that in addition to it. There are all kinds of tactics and solutions out there. You just need to start thinking about doing it at all. If you are not doing this in a targeted, pointed way, you are hoping, and hope is no way to build a business. Be targeted and deliberate about what you're doing.
Yeah, it's not enough to kind of just be there and hope that, like you said, we did everything we could, hope they come back, or just say, hey, we've got some openings next Friday. Do you want to come back in and try new fall menu? Or why don't you come by for brunch? Let's get you booked.
Totally. If the restaurant owners, if the operators listening to this just added that, do nothing else that I'm suggesting, but just shifted your mindset and change that. Again, I challenge you one Saturday night or one weekend to not ever say, thank you very much, have a good night, but say, thank you very much, comma, something else that makes it absolutely clear that you want them back. You will start seeing a profound difference in the engagement and in your revenue. You will feel it immediately.
Absolutely. And I think kind of going from that, building those relationships, I think, of course, it's important to have people to build those relationships with. Now, kind of working backwards, we know that, the best way probably to get more people in the door is through that evangelism part, having other people do it. Like you mentioned, 80% of that marketing kind of happens. Now, for that extra 20%, or that other 20% rather, getting kind of people in the door, new people, maybe you're a new restaurant or a new location. What are the strategies that, you're recommending to get net new people, new butts in seats?
That's great. So here's the beauty of doing this, working this backwards, is that you've already got a steady stream of people. Even if it's not as many covers as you want to be doing, they're still coming in, and it gives you something to do while you're putting this other larger strategy for attraction into place. So it gives you something to start working on. The attraction piece, the other reason why I save it for last is that, number one, it's the most complicated and it's the most expensive. So in marketing, we talk about sales funnels all the time, right? That we look at the population of a given area, right? So here in New York City, we're both here in New York City. It's 8 million people, right? That's our population. They are not all going to be our customers. Most of them can't get to us conveniently, can't afford us, don't like the kind of food that we're serving. Right. So immediately we're narrowing it down to figure out our market, right? Who would be most apt to love what it is we do? We talk about in marketing textbooks, they talk about this AIDA model, AIDA, awareness, interest, desire, and then action. That can happen quickly. A consumer or a prospective consumer can pass through those 4 stages very quickly. Right. They hear about you're out to dinner. Somebody tells you about a restaurant that says, that sounds so great. And then, oh, you got to look at this dessert on Instagram. Already then you're on awareness and interest. And they look and say, that looks great. And, you look over to your spouse and you say, we should go here. Okay, now it's desire. So you went through that pretty quickly in the course of 2 minutes. And then you need them to take action. That can also take a long time. You hear about the place and you're like, oh, that sounds really fancy. I've got no reason to go there. Maybe we'll wait until our anniversary next year. So it could be 7 months away, 8 months away, but they're aware of it. And then when you talk about this is where you got to make sure your social media is dialed in. You got to make sure your website's dialed in so that when people go to do research, when they're interested enough to look at your Instagram, it looks all great, right? So that people go, oh, that is, so that they heard great things and now they're seeing great things. Right, your website then has to be optimized to promote action. Right, I always say that websites are usually way too complicated. So again, if you want to talk about tactics, think in terms of what you want people to do. What you want as a restaurant, what you want them to do is either give you money or make an appointment to give you money later. I either want them to order online,
Right.
or I want them to reserve to come, literally think of that. It sounds so stupid and simple and we laugh about it, but
Yeah.
I want them to give me money or set a time to give me money later, right?
Hmm.
So I don't need the story, the novel about who you are and the background and all that, unless all that information is going to help get them to take action. But you
Right.
need to think of, on your website in particular, what action you want them to take and make sure all the content is positioned to do that. Now, when we also talk about attraction, right, you've got to make sure your presence, right? We call this reputation management. Make sure your presence across the internet, across your website, your social media pages, your Yelp, your TripAdvisor, your Google My Business, everything is all locked in, dialed in, and supports this. Because as people go do research, again, in that
Right.
sales funnel, right, as they do more research, you need them to be able to see good reviews, that the pictures are beautiful and enticing them to come in. All of this is helping them drive towards an action, right?
Right.
The last piece of this is awareness. This is the thing that I think so little restaurant owners do, which is spend money on social media.
Hmm.
Social media only exists as an advertising platform.
Mm.
And as operators, I urge you all to think in terms of that. It is the most efficient, cost-effective way to get to the people that you absolutely need to get to, the people that are most apt to love what it is you do. You can take your email list, right? You can take your email list and take all of the most engaged users. You can export that, right, to an email, to a CSV file, upload that into Facebook, and say, I want to send an ad to all these people, or I want to create a lookalike audience of people out there in my market that mirror this group that I know already love me. Facebook is a very sophisticated advertising platform. So if operators are out there using this, only posting organically, you post once a day, once every other day, a picture of the cheeseburger, a picture of your dining room, here's your chef filleting something, fine, do that. But you're not using it for what it was really intended to be used for. This is the best way to raise awareness. If you just set a certain budget to raising awareness, to just sending your ads to people in your market who don't already know you,
Yep.
this just ran in the background, right? And there are all kinds of very tactical ways to do this. You can drive people to landing pages to capture information. You can incentivize them, get $10 off, get 10% off, get 2 free glasses of champagne. Click here, they go to a landing page, they put in their information, and emails automatically sent to them with a coupon,
Right.
or things that, show this to your server when you arrive at the restaurant. There are simple ways to set it up. But if you treat social media as a way to raise awareness for your brand, and you just commit to spending $100 a month, $300, $500 a month, just trying to capture new business, just trying to get people's attention, and then incentivize them or entice them to come in, then you will be using social media for how it's really meant to be used. It's not an organic posting service. That's useless right now. The reach is dead. You're never going to reach new people. Use it for what it is, which is an advertising platform.
Yeah. Too busy to reach new people, too many restaurants that you're competing against. But I think, like you said, if you find that audience that you're looking for, whether it's a look-like audience or the actual audience, people that are coming in, and targeting those people, that's where you're going to have the most effect.
Yep.
And I think that kind of moving from there, I think what's kind of interesting about this framework, not only are we talking about bringing people in the door, right? We think we've laid this out really well. You did an amazing job kind of going through all these stages. And I think, moving from there, something, restaurants are having trouble getting customers in the door, but they're really having trouble right now getting staff to work for them.
Absolutely.
Some restaurants have too many customers and not enough staff, and they have to close. I know a bunch of restaurants around me that, now they're operating on 4 or 5 days a week rather than 6.
Yep.
But I think that this framework can be very easily applied. And I think this would be kind of a nice coda to the conversation. Talking about how hiring is marketing, and how do you think that these strategies apply to getting marketing to employees?
Yeah, it's such a great question, and I love what it is that you guys do, and this does tie so neatly in there, right? We are marketing all the time. This is what makes me laugh when operators say, "Oh, I don't do marketing. I don't have a budget for marketing." It's like, no, you do marketing whether you know it or not. You
Right.
just may not be doing it efficiently or effectively. Like I said earlier, you got to know who you are and who you're for. That works when we're talking about customers, right? You know, if you've got a steakhouse, you know you're not for a bunch of vegetarians. That just you don't have what they want, right? So that's easy. The
Right.
same thing is true with staffing, right? You got to know who you are and who you're for. What kind of person would love this job? What kind of person would thrive in this job? It's not just who you need,
Yeah.
but you are a good fit. Like we talked about, right? Like a really good relationship, like a really good marriage. Like there is a fit out there. And I think it goes in two parts, right?
Yeah.
You got to create a job that people want, right?
Mhm.
That it sounds so simple. It sounds so, again, so stupid. You got to create a job that people want. You got to be really honest about what people want and really understand that. And then it's just a matter of effectively communicating that. This is actually where a lot of restaurants fail. Yes, some people want health insurance. You know, people want health insurance and some of that stability and 401k and all of that. So yeah, as an industry, we can work harder. We can get creative about ways to provide that.
Right.
But there are lots of things that we do have, right? Like this industry offers flexibility. It offers a very low barrier of entry. So if you
Yep.
don't know what to do, you know, what you want to do with your life, if you don't know what you're qualified to do, you can pretty much get in. I'm certainly a testament to this. I got my very first restaurant job and I had no idea what I was doing, knew nothing about food or wine or how to serve, but I picked it up quickly and I learned. And if you're open and eager, that's a positive attribute, right?
Yeah.
That again, low barrier of entry, flexibility of schedule, the opportunity to travel, meaning you can work a year here and then go and work a year there and work either in the same market in the same city or travel because your skill set transfers. So if you're living in New York City and you say, you know what, I want to go to the West Coast, there's a job out there for you, right? That there's the ability to travel either within an organization
Right.
or from organization to organization. That's incredible. You can't do that easily with a lot of corporate jobs, right?
Yeah.
We have to get better about communicating that. So again, when you talk about the attraction, retention, evangelism, you got to create a job and find people who love this. They can't help but talk about how great this job is to their friends,
Right.
to their family, to all of that, right? You got to take care of your people so that you retain them, right? What do you do to make sure they come back over and over and over again? And if you know what you offer, if you know yourself and you know your brand really well, it's just about raising awareness for how great this place is. If you want X, Y, and Z, this is the place for you. This is again knowing who you are and who you're for.
Yeah. And knowing like, what makes the people that you work with evangelize you and suggest you to other people, what you're doing on kind of a human resources or, people and culture level to keep them around for a long time. And then the attraction should kind of be that last step. Like we mentioned, 80% of the stuff just comes from, what you're not doing. It's coming from, behind your back. And then, using those similar targeting tactics, I think, like we talked about with social media, but maybe this is finding out where people that work for you live and going to that area and finding other like-minded people.
Here's the other thing, right? I was talking about, I've spent a lot of time talking about job listings over the last little while. So I coach with dozens of clients all over the country. And they're saying, we just can't get people. We can't get people, right? So we were talking about just some bare bones things. Like you have to change the way you hire. For example, they were saying, oh, we're getting all these hits on the resume, but then nobody shows up for the interview after we schedule it.
Right.
So you're doing it the old way, right? They email their resume and you email them back and they say, okay, yeah, I'll be there Tuesday at 2:00. I said, instead, pick up the phone and say, hey, Joe, I just got your resume. Do you have a few minutes to chat with me? It can be an informal interview, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then get them on the hook right away. Say, hey, listen, I really love this conversation. I'd love to get you in so you can see the place, see what we're all about. Are you available tomorrow night or the next night? Get them on the hook, get them to come in. Then when they come in, spend the first 10 or 15 minutes and sit down with them again. Maybe have another manager sit down with them to get their impression. And that's going to be like the more formal interview. But maybe we don't have to go through this like server test and formal interview process. Just get them in the door. So it's a little bit different than we used to be doing. I talk about job listings, right? Most job listings are, these are the job requirements. You need, X years of experience and this certification and all of this. And then it says, here are the responsibilities of the job. You're going to do this and this and this and this. And then at the bottom, if it's there at all, is, this is what you get. I said, flip them around. Right. So start with, these are the 10 reasons why you're going to love working here. and then list all that. And maybe you don't even get to the requirements or the responsibilities. Maybe those are all covered later.
Yeah.
Maybe that's in a follow-up email after the first job. Say, so here's the position. I just wanted you to have this in writing. All the stuff that would have been in the job posting that nobody really reads anyway just comes down the line. Start by saying, this is what we have. This is why you're going to love it here. This is why people who are here love it here.
Absolutely. And I think that's a perfect way to kind of tie things up today. We're a little bit out of time. However, amazing conversation, and kind of moving forward, restaurants need some help strategy with marketing or hiring. Where can folks find you, Chip?
Yeah, listen, I love what you're doing here. I always appreciate such generosity. I think the industry always needs help. I think building more community between things. So thank you for what you're doing here. You can go check out the Restaurant Strategy Podcast, my show. It's been going on for just about 3 years.
Yes.
That's a great place to connect with the things that I think about, and other people who are thinking about these things as well. The other way to connect with me, and I do this twice a year, and I'll kind of offer this up. If there's anybody out there that wants to chat with me, I'm offering up 6 free coaching sessions, 60-minute session, totally free. It's just we're gonna ask a lot of questions. We're gonna help you work through some things. If that turns into further conversations, I do one-on-one coaching. I do group coaching. If it turns into that, great. I would love to be able to continue to help you. If not, if that's all it ends up being, great. I hope that I'm able to point you in the right direction. The best way to do that is to just reach out to me directly. Just my email address, Chip, CHIP, at chipklose.com, CHIPKLOSE.com. I hope that a bunch of you reach out. I'd love to have conversations, hear about your restaurants, what you're working on, what you're struggling with, and see if there's any way that I can help you.
Chip, thank you so much. So generous of you to provide that for listeners. Don't hesitate to reach out. I think you'll find, if you found value in this conversation, I think you'll find immense value in kind of that one-on-one session with Chip, and tell them that 7 Shifts sent you. But Chip, thank you so much again for your time today.
No, thank you for having me.
All right. Have a good one.
You too.
Thanks again for checking out the Restaurant Growth Podcast. We're glad to have you as a listener. For more great content from 7 Shifts, check out our website and blog, 7shifts.com/blog. You can also hit us on all of the social media platforms at 7 Shifts. Thanks.